Welcome to Agile Basics. Start with Kanban. When it comes to Agile frameworks, Kanban may not be as well known as Scrum, but it might actually be a better solution for companies who are in the transition process from a true waterfall environment to an Agile environment. Kanban is even more flexible than Scrum since there are no 2 week sprint periods and changes can be made at any time. This has its drawbacks, of course, but also provides some benefits. For an agile transformation to be successful, we advise patience and taking a slow, long term approach to transform into agile. And with that, we feel Kanban is perfect. It's especially useful when transitioning from a waterfall environment because it's a slow step. You're not having to add all these scrum ceremonies, your daily stand ups, your sprint planning, and all of that, but you can still start to think and do agile. One of the constants of all Agile projects, regardless of the specific framework, is the board. The board in which you track all work, and in this case, you got the structure as follows: a backlog, to do, in progress, testing, done. And really, it does not matter if you use a whiteboard, you use some wall in a conference room, you put sticky notes on it, or if you use one of the more advanced software tools such as Jira, Rally, etc. The key is to keep everything tracked and managed, and we feel that it's a great place to start with Kanban because you can put everything on this one board, visually represent it, and then move through it as you can. Quick question: what happens when you juggle too many priorities? If you're like me and my teams, you tend to drop them. So then the next logical move is to Agile. And then when teams first embrace Agile, they look at Scrum and they think, oh, we've got to implement this new structure and define these roles, find a product owner, Scrum Master, start these 2 week sprints with a retrospective stand up and backlog. And we caution you for two reasons. First of all, the practicality of adapting to change. Very few of us adapt to change well. It takes time, and then teams are going to be generally resistant to it. So we advise that we take the slow step, the baby step, if you will, towards Agile by implementing a Kanban team first and get everyone comfortable with the way that it works, and then move on to Scrum. Again, with the key point, if it's applicable for your project and for your team. And we will talk about that later. But first thing we want to point out is the fact that, don't rush to Scrum. Think about if Kanban works, and we'll show you how, for example, many non-software projects, Kanban is ideal. Citing an example, moving from a waterfall environment to an agile environment. So as we recommend that all teams start with Kanban as a way of getting to Scrum, for certain project types, we strongly recommend using Kanban permanently. These types of projects are infrastructure upgrades and ERP systems such as SAP. These don't require 2 to 3 week releases and anything that can be grouped that easily. And really, you don't need to add the additional overhead of all the sprint ceremonies, the review, the retrospective, and the sprint planning for something that has no release schedule that fits the schedule. So we recommend for these types of projects, you go from waterfall to Kanban and manage it that way. We'll show you how. So what are the steps to transition from your existing waterfall project to a Kanban project? First, if you have one, start off with the existing project plan, usually kept in Microsoft Project or some other Gantt chart tool, and then convert the items you already have into tasks or user stories in Jira, Rally, or whatever tool you have, or just a whiteboard. And then really what you're going to want to do is decide on the meeting schedule. And here's where we want to take a little bit from Scrum, and that's the daily stand-up. We love the daily stand-up, which is a 15-minute meeting where everybody talks about what they're doing for the day and what the plans are. So we recommend that. Now, a real-world example from my experience would be a data center move. Now, truly, a data center move does not correspond to a nice 2 week sprint cycle. And so we took that from a waterfall project plan and managed it Kanban very successfully. So let's start with our Microsoft project plan. Look at the Gantt chart here and the overall list of tasks, and then try to figure out how best to represent that in an Agile project. Of course, we're talking Kanban here. So looking at the tasks, we've got a few parent tasks above, and then we have the individual tasks for each location listed below. So let's look at the first ones. We've got set up project team, sign contracts, create overall plan for all locations. And then we have the specifics, as I said, finalize the lease, implement the hardware, secure the team, cut over plans, and data transformation, and then obviously the decommissioning step would be last. So we have a lot of tasks there which won't all be in progress to begin. So we need to think about that when we build out the board. Do we put all tasks on there at once, or maybe just give ourselves a subset with which to start, which would be our recommendation. Now let's look at a Kanban board which we've configured in our Jira environment. And if you need the steps to set a board up, we have another video in which we can walk you through that. But let's go and look at the initial steps that we've converted over from our project plan and see how we can manage this in a Kanban environment. So obviously you see the one item that's in progress is the very first one from the project plan, set up the project team and cover all the logistics. Secondarily, which would be next to do, be set getting the contract signed and the overall plan for the full 6 location rollout for the data center move. And then what we have in the backlog that we've identified that we can work on now is finalizing the lease for both the Detroit and the Iowa locations, the 4 subsequent locations to follow that. So you see how you can take a project plan and very simply put this in a Kanban board and manage this on a daily basis far easier than you could managing it off of a project plan. So that's a lot of information to process. So let's summarize when to use Kanban. The first scenario, as we've noted, is to bridge from Waterfall to Agile. We think it eases the transition to get you from a strict Waterfall PMO environment. Infrastructure projects, we recommend that you always run them with Kanban. There's no need to have 2 week sprints because infrastructure doesn't work that way typically, unless you need to sequence it that way. But from our experience, you don't. Kanban is our recommendation for infrastructure projects all the time, especially complex ones such as the data center move, which we illustrate in this video. The third thing is ERP projects, SAP. We've done a lot of SAP projects in our time, and we've learned they definitely don't correspond to a 2 week sprint cycle because you have release calendars and more structure that SAP provides or any other type of ERP. So we don't think we should do that. And then we're going to throw a new one out there. We think any non-IT project could be better served running with Kanban than with Waterfall. You maybe use Waterfall on a Gantt chart for your wide schedule, but your day-to-day, we highly recommend using Kanban for any type of project. Architecture, engineering, anything you need to manage, use Kanban instead of Waterfall. For more information on Kanban and others such as Scrum and Scrumban, join us for our next video entitled The Many Flavors of Agile, in which we discuss Kanban, Scrum, and Scrumban and identify some ideal scenarios for each, as well as how to get into maybe move from one to the other.
Thanks for watching our video. Please subscribe to our channel and join us next time.